"They think it's poison," he growled. "Vile liars, from now on you are my weapon." Captain Elias Ward, commander of the elite Terran Expeditionary Unit, had seen countless battlefields in his career, but nothing quite like this. The planet Vorkari was on the edge of known space, a backwater world that had once been a lush paradise. Now it was dying. The skies were gray and the land was cracked and barren, yet the Terran Empire had its eye on it. There were whispers of a terrible weapon hidden beneath the surface, a weapon so powerful it could threaten the entire galaxy. This weapon, they said, was a poisonous plant that spread across the planet's surface, turning everything it touched into toxic wastelands. The Empire's orders were clear: destroy the weapon before it could be used. Ward's ship, the Liberator, had been dispatched to do just that. The mission was simple: land, confirm the threat, and neutralize it. There was no room for doubt. The Emperor's decree had been clear, and Ward knew better than to question his orders. But as the shuttle descended through the thick, murky atmosphere of Vorkari, Elias felt a nagging sense of unease. He had been to worlds like this before, desolate, with nothing but silence and dust left behind. The reports had painted a grim picture. The Hethari, a race of alien inhabitants, had once lived in harmony with the planet, but now they were seen as dangerous, their entire race blamed for the planet's decay. According to the Empire, the Hethari had cultivated the poison, using it as a weapon. The idea of an entire species being blamed for a world's destruction was something Ward didn't fully understand, but his orders were clear. The shuttle touched down on the rocky terrain. The air was thin and the ground beneath them was cracked and dry. Elias gave a sharp look to his team, 6 highly trained soldiers, each one prepared for anything. They disembarked, weapons in hand, ready for whatever they might encounter. "Stay sharp," Ward muttered. "This could be an ambush." The team moved swiftly, cutting through the desolate landscape toward the coordinates they had been given. As they advanced, the air grew even heavier, a stifling, unnatural weight pressing down on them. Ward scanned the horizon, eyes narrowing. There was something wrong here, something he couldn't quite place. The land should have been dead, but the faintest traces of life could be seen in the cracks of the soil. Small, strange plants sprouted from the dust, their leaves shimmering with an odd, unnatural light. Elias crouched beside one of them, inspecting it. It wasn't the deadly poison they had been told to expect. "What the hell?" Elias muttered under his breath. One of his team members, Sergeant Lara Jax, knelt beside him. "Is it the poison?" Ward shook his head. "No. It's something else. These plants aren't what the reports said. It's almost like they're alive." "Maybe it's a trap," Jax suggested, standing up. "The Hethari might be using the plants as a defense." Ward nodded, but his unease only deepened. The plants were growing in a pattern, almost like a map guiding them forward. He motioned to the rest of the team. "We keep moving, stay alert." As they trekked deeper into the planet's heart, the strange plants grew thicker, their glowing leaves casting eerie shadows on the rocky surface. It wasn't long before they encountered their first signs of the Hethari, figures moving silently through the shadows. They were tall, with elongated limbs and dark, reflective skin. Their eyes shone with a light that was both ancient and intelligent. They watched the humans with silent curiosity. One of them stepped forward, holding a bundle of plants in his hand. His face was sharp and angular, with a strange grace to his movements. Elias instinctively reached for his weapon, but something in the alien's posture made him pause. The Hethari didn't look hostile. They were calm, almost peaceful. Elias stepped forward, his hand lowering slightly. "We're here to neutralize the weapon. We've been told that the plants you're cultivating are dangerous." The Hethari seemed to consider his words, then shook his head slowly. In broken basic, the alien spoke, his voice calm and deep. "Poison, not poison." Elias furrowed his brow. "What do you mean? We were told your people had created a biological weapon. The Empire believes these plants can destroy entire colonies." "Not poison," the Hethari repeated, holding out the bundle of plants. "Life, healing." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Healing?" He looked at the plant in the Hethari's hand. It was beautiful, with bioluminescent flowers that pulsed gently in the dim light. "Are you saying these plants can heal?" The Hethari nodded, gesturing toward the field of plants stretching across the land. "These are not poison. These are gifts from the Earth. We share with the galaxy, but your people." The Hethari's voice grew cold. "They call us monsters." Ward stared at the alien for a moment, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. Everything he had been told had painted the Hethari as dangerous, deceitful creatures bent on destruction. But now he was being told that they were the victims of a misunderstanding that had cost them their planet and their peace. A sudden sharp voice cut through the air. "Captain, we've got movement, Imperial forces inbound." Elias turned sharply. His team was already moving into position, weapons raised, preparing for a fight. The sound of approaching engines rumbled in the distance, and Elias knew it was too late to turn back. The Empire's forces were already here. "Get ready," he barked. "We need to hold them off and get to the ship. We're not leaving without answers." As Elias and his team prepared for battle, his mind raced. He had come here to destroy a weapon, but he wasn't so sure anymore that the real enemy was the Hethari. Something about this planet, about the Hethari's peaceful message, felt off. Was the Empire really here to protect the galaxy, or were they after something much darker? The first blast of blaster fire hit the ground near them, sending dirt and rocks flying. Elias felt a surge of adrenaline and ordered his team to move. They engaged the incoming Imperial forces, but Ward couldn't shake the feeling that something far larger was at play here. The Hethari weren't the threat, not by a long shot. It was the Empire, with its insatiable hunger for power, that was the true danger. But the question remained, what were they really after? As Elias fought back the waves of Imperial soldiers, he couldn't help but wonder, was this a mission to stop a deadly weapon, or had he been sent here to destroy something far more precious? The truth, it seemed, was just out of reach, and the galaxy's future might depend on whether he could find it in time. Elias Ward lay flat against a jagged rock, his pulse racing. The battle had been fierce, but now there was silence. The Empire's soldiers had retreated for the moment, but Ward knew that wouldn't last long. His mind kept circling back to what the Hethari had told him. These plants, they weren't weapons. They weren't poison, as the Empire claimed. They were something else entirely. Something healing, but how could that be true? The Empire had sent him here with clear orders, destroy the weapon. But what if the weapon wasn't what they thought it was? He could hear the soft rustling of leaves as the Hethari moved through the trees, their long, graceful forms blending into the shadows. Elias had seen the way they had moved, their calm, almost peaceful demeanor. They were nothing like the monsters the Empire had described. They didn't attack, they didn't defend themselves with violence. But why? Why hadn't they fought back against the Empire's invasion of their world? "Captain," Sergeant Lara Jax whispered, crouching next to him. "What are we going to do?" Elias didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the horizon, looking for signs of movement. There was something unsettling about the way the Hethari acted, so calm in the face of war. They should have been fighting for their planet, for their lives. Yet they didn't. "We need to find out more," he said, his voice low. "Something doesn't add up here," Jax frowned. "You think the Hethari are innocent?" "I don't know," Elias replied, his mind racing, "but I don't think they're the ones we should be fighting." The night was falling and the air was growing cold. Elias could feel the weight of the decisions before him. They had to move quickly. The Empire wouldn't wait forever. He turned to his team. "Stay sharp," he ordered. "We're going to talk to them. Keep your weapons ready, but no sudden movements. We don't want to start a fight." As the team silently moved through the rocky terrain, Elias couldn't shake the thought that the true enemy wasn't the Hethari, but something much darker. His gut told him the Empire's mission here wasn't to neutralize a biological weapon. It was to control it, to use it for their own gain. That's what they always did, manipulate the truth, twist it until it suited their needs. He had seen it happen before on countless worlds. They reached a small clearing, and Elias raised a hand to stop the team. There, in the center of the space, was a Hethari woman standing alone in the dim light. She was holding a bundle of the glowing plants, her long, dark eyes watching them with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Elias stepped forward cautiously, his heart pounding. He didn't know if this would work, but they had no other choice. The plants, the Hethari, they were all linked somehow. They had to understand what was going on. They had to stop the Empire before it was too late. The woman didn't speak at first, only watching him with those intelligent eyes. Her presence was calm, almost soothing, like the plants themselves. For a moment, Elias felt a strange sense of peace. It was as if she could see right through him, as if she knew his thoughts, his doubts. "You've come to destroy us, haven't you?" she said suddenly, her voice quiet but firm. Elias blinked in surprise. No, he said quickly. We've come to understand, to find out the truth. The woman tilted her head slightly. The truth, she stepped closer, holding out the plants in her hands. This is the truth. These plants are life. They heal. They have the power to mend wounds, to cure diseases, to restore what has been lost. Elias stared at the plants. He had seen them before, but he hadn't truly understood what they were capable of. The glowing flowers, their soft light flickering in the darkness, seemed almost alive. He could feel the power radiating from them, an energy unlike anything he had ever encountered. It was peaceful, gentle, but it also held a deep strength. Why didn't you fight back? Elias asked. Why didn't you defend yourselves when the Empire attacked? The woman's gaze softened. We do not fight, we do not kill, we do not believe in violence. But the Empire, Elias started, but she raised a hand to silence him. The Empire believes they can control the galaxy with fear and destruction, she said, her voice heavy with sorrow. But they are wrong. They do not understand. They do not know what they are truly seeking. What are you saying? Elias asked, his voice tense. She took a step closer. These plants are not just for healing. They are a gift from the Earth itself. They can bring balance to the galaxy, restore harmony, but only if they are used with wisdom and respect. Elias' mind was racing. He had been taught his whole life that the galaxy was a battlefield, that only the strongest survived. The Empire had always told him that peace could only be achieved through dominance. But now, standing before this alien woman holding these glowing plants, he wasn't so sure anymore. What are you asking me to do? Elias said slowly. The Empire won't stop. They'll destroy you. They'll destroy all of us if we don't stop them first. She looked into his eyes. You must choose, Captain. You must decide whether to destroy or to heal, whether to follow the path of destruction or the path of peace. The choice is yours. For a long moment, Elias didn't speak. His mind was in turmoil. He had always followed orders without question, trusted the Empire's word without hesitation. But now, with the Hethari standing before him, with the plants glowing in the dim light, he began to wonder if he had been wrong all along. We can't let them win, Elias said finally, his voice low. We can't let them turn this planet into a weapon. The woman nodded. Then you must help us. You must protect the plants, protect the truth. Elias felt a strange sense of resolve fill him. He didn't know if he could defeat the Empire, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let them destroy something so pure, so full of life. The plants were more than a weapon. They were a symbol of everything the Empire feared. We'll protect them, Elias said, his voice firm. We'll stop them. The woman gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. Thank you, Captain. You will not regret this. As Elias turned to leave, he felt a deep sense of purpose settle over him. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in his life, he knew he was on the right side of history. The Empire might have the firepower, the resources, the control, but he had something they didn't. He had the truth, and he would fight to protect it. But as Elias and his team moved away, heading toward their next objective, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Empire wouldn't give up so easily. They would come after the plants, after the Hethari, and they wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. Elias didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. The fight for peace had only just begun. Elias stood on the edge of the clearing, his mind racing as the faint glow of the Hethari plants lit the area around him. The night had grown quieter, and the distant sounds of the Empire's soldiers were beginning to fade, but Elias knew this peace would not last long. He had made his decision, to protect the Hethari, to protect their plants, and to stop the Empire from destroying everything they had worked to preserve. But the cost of that decision was becoming clear. The Empire would not let them go without a fight. And now Elias was certain he was no longer just a soldier of the Terran Empire. He was a part of something much larger, something that would change the future of the galaxy. The woman, whom Elias had learned was named Lyra, stood beside him, her quiet presence a constant reminder of everything that was at stake. The Hethari were unlike anything he had encountered before. They were peaceful, their way of life rooted in harmony with nature. But the Empire didn't understand peace. They saw power and they took it. They had already begun their attack on the planet, sending troops to force the Hethari into submission, to claim the plant for themselves. But Elias was no longer willing to be a pawn in the Empire's game. He was going to stop them, no matter what it took. He looked at Lyra. We need to get the plants off this planet. The Empire is already moving to take control. We can't let them have it. Lyra nodded slowly. You understand now, Captain, the plants are more than just a gift. They are the key to the galaxy's future, but the Empire will never see that. They will only seek to destroy what they cannot control. Elias clenched his fists. I know, but I won't let them win. Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft but filled with an intensity that made Elias pause. You must be careful. The Empire is not just a force of soldiers. They are powerful, and their reach extends far beyond this planet. They will come for you, for all of us. Elias understood her warning. The Empire's influence stretched across the stars. They had armies, fleets, spies, and enough resources to crush entire civilizations if they wished. And now Elias was directly in their way. He didn't know how long they had before the Empire would send reinforcements to destroy the plants and subjugate the Hethari. He couldn't afford to waste time. We need to move, he said, his voice steady. Get your people ready. We'll find a way to transport the plants off-world. We have to take them somewhere safe. Lyra looked thoughtful for a moment, then nodded. There is a place far from the Empire's reach where the plants can grow in peace, but it will not be easy to get there. We'll make it work, Elias said, his eyes narrowing with determination. We'll do whatever it takes. As they made their way back toward the hidden Hethari settlement, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The plants with their healing properties could change everything. They could cure diseases, repair ecosystems, and even restore entire planets. They were the future of the galaxy, but only if the Empire didn't get their hands on them. Elias had always believed that the Empire's might was invincible, but now he realized how wrong he had been. The Empire's power was nothing compared to the strength that lay within the Hethari plants. The team, along with Lyra and a small group of Hethari, worked quickly to prepare the plants for transport. They placed the glowing flowers into specially designed containers that would keep them safe and alive during the journey. It was a delicate process, and Elias couldn't help but marvel at the Hethari's knowledge of the plants. They knew how to handle them, how to care for them, as if they were part of the land itself. The bond between the Hethari and the plants was deep, something that Elias could never have understood before now. As they finished loading the plants onto a small transport ship, Elias couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. He had seen the power the Empire had over worlds, the way they could crush entire civilizations without a second thought. And now, he was taking a stand against them. For the first time in his life, Elias felt a sense of responsibility that went beyond his duties as a soldier. He wasn't just fighting for the Empire anymore. He was fighting for something much larger, something that could change the galaxy forever. We're ready, Lara Jax said, stepping up beside Elias. The ship is fueled and the plants are secure. What's the next move? Elias glanced at the transport ship, now fully loaded with the plants, ready to take off. We leave now, he said, his voice calm but firm. We can't wait for the Empire to catch up. They'll be here soon. As they boarded the ship, Elias' mind raced with possibilities. He had no plan, no backup, no idea where they could go, but they couldn't just stay here. The Empire would find them, and when they did, there would be no escaping the consequences. The engines roared to life as the ship lifted off the ground. Elias looked out the window as the planet Vorkari shrank beneath them, its surface dotted with the glowing plants that were their salvation. The journey ahead would not be easy, but there was no turning back now. The galaxy was on the brink of something incredible, and Elias had just become a part of it. As the ship entered the atmosphere, Elias' thoughts were interrupted by a flashing red light on the control panel. His heart skipped a beat. The warning light was unmistakable. The Empire had found them. Enemy ships inbound, Lara Jax reported, her voice tense. They've detected us. Elias cursed under his breath. They hadn't even gotten a head start. The Empire's forces were faster, more efficient. They would catch them long before they reached a safe location. Get ready for a fight, Elias ordered, his hand hovering over the ship's weapons control. He turned to Lyra. Where's the safe place you mentioned? We need to go there now. Lyra's face was set with determination. There is an old station on the edge of the galactic core. It's abandoned, but it's hidden. The Empire doesn't know about it. Then that's where we're going, Elias said. Set a course for the core, full speed. The ship lurched as it accelerated toward the stars. Elias felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They were outnumbered, and they were headed straight for an enemy force that was already on their tail. It wasn't a question of if they would be attacked, it was a question of when. and when the Empire arrived, it would be a battle to the end. As the ship shot through space, Elias stayed at the controls, his hands steady but his thoughts racing. He was no longer just a soldier of the Empire. He was a defender of the truth. And the truth was that the Empire was wrong. The plants were not a weapon to be destroyed. They were a gift, a chance for healing, for peace. But peace was something the Empire could never understand. "We're going to make it," Elias said, more to himself than to anyone else. "We have to." He couldn't afford to fail. The future of the galaxy depended on it. The stars blurred past them as the ship shot through space, its engines roaring at full power. Elias stood at the helm, his eyes focused on the coordinates Lyra had given them. The ship was shaking slightly, a reminder that they were traveling at dangerous speeds. Every part of him was on high alert. The Empire would be coming after them. They had to get to the hidden station before they were caught. Lyra stood nearby, her expression calm but tense. Elias could tell that even though she was trying to maintain her composure, she was just as worried as he was. The plants they carried, life itself, were more precious than anything they had ever fought for. If the Empire got their hands on them, the balance of power in the galaxy could shift, and not in a way that would benefit anyone. The rest of Elias' team was scattered across the ship, each member working in silence. The only sound was the hum of the engines and the occasional soft beep from the control panel. Elias glanced over at Lara Jax, who was monitoring the incoming data on the ship's sensors. "They're still following us," Lara said, her voice flat but serious. "And they're closing in fast." Elias gritted his teeth. "How much longer until we reach the station?" 10 minutes, maybe less," Lara replied, her fingers tapping quickly at the controls. "But at this rate, we'll be in their sights before then. We're not going to outrun them." Elias didn't like the sound of that. The Empire had faster ships, better technology. If they couldn't outrun them, they would have to fight. But they were outnumbered, and their ship was no match for the firepower of the Empire. The only chance they had was to make it to the station and hide, somewhere the Empire couldn't follow. "We need to make sure they don't catch up," Elias said, his voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at the back of his mind. "Lara, get the weapons ready. We may need to defend ourselves." Lara nodded, a grim expression crossing her face. "Understood, Captain." The tension in the ship grew thicker as the seconds ticked by. Elias could feel the weight of the decision he had made pressing on him. It had started as a simple mission, take out a weapon, follow orders, and go home. But now everything had changed. He was no longer fighting for the Empire. He was fighting for the future, for the Hethari, and for the chance to stop the Empire from destroying everything they touched. He glanced at Lyra again, who was standing near the viewport, her eyes locked on the stars outside. There was something peaceful about her presence, even in the face of such danger. Elias couldn't help but wonder what had driven her people to live in such harmony with nature, with the land. They didn't seek power, they didn't fight wars. And yet it was the Empire that had invaded their home, that had sought to crush them because they were too peaceful, too unthreatening. The ship lurched suddenly, breaking Elias' thoughts. He grabbed the controls and steadied the ship. What was that? Lara turned to him, her face pale. "We've been hit. Shields are holding, but not for long." Elias cursed under his breath. They were already under fire. The Empire had found them. "Full speed ahead," Elias ordered. "Get us to that station no matter what it takes." The ship's engines roared as it surged forward. The stars outside began to stretch and blur as they accelerated, but the pursuing ships were closing in. Elias could see their shapes now, looming in the distance. A pair of sleek Imperial cruisers, their weapons already charging. "Shields are starting to fail," Lara reported, her voice tinged with urgency. "We won't last long under this kind of fire." Elias' mind raced. He needed a plan, fast. If they couldn't outrun the Empire, then they would have to make the fight as difficult as possible. "Lara," Elias said, his voice tight, "can we get the ship to drop out of hyperspace early? Can we shake them off?" "It's risky," she replied. "We'd be dropping into unknown space, possibly even into a gravity well. It could tear us apart." Elias didn't hesitate. "Do it. If we stay on this course, we'll be dead in minutes." Lara's hands flew over the controls, and the ship shuddered again as she pulled them out of hyperspace. The stars around them twisted and stretched, the ship's systems warning of imminent danger. For a split second, Elias thought they had made a mistake, but then the ship lurched forward, a violent pull that threw him back in his seat. "Brace for impact," Elias shouted. The ship hit something invisible like a wall of force. The lights flickered and alarms began to blare as the ship shook violently. Elias gritted his teeth, holding on to the controls with all his strength. "Report," he snapped. "We're in some kind of uncharted system," Lara said, her voice strained. "But the Empire is still on our tail." Elias looked at the navigation panel, then at Lyra. She was watching him closely, her expression unreadable. "We don't have much time," Elias said, "but I have an idea. Lyra, can your people help us?" Lyra nodded slowly. "We can. But you must trust us completely." Elias didn't hesitate. "What do we need to do?" Lyra stepped forward, her hands moving in the air as if weaving a thread of energy. Elias had seen the Hethari do this before. Their connection to the plants, their understanding of life, was deeper than he could comprehend. "We can use the plants," Lyra said. "They can enhance your ship systems, strengthen your shields, and help us evade detection. But we must place the plants at the core of your ship." Elias' brow furrowed. "At the core, that's risky, but if it works—" "It will," Lyra interrupted. "But you must act quickly. The Empire is closing in." Elias turned to his crew. "We're doing this. Lara, make it happen. Get the plants into the core of the ship." Lara hesitated, but then nodded. "Aye, Captain, but if this fails—" "It won't fail," Elias said firmly. "We'll make it work." The team sprang into action, moving quickly to secure the plants and get them into the ship's core. Lyra guided them, her hands moving with precise grace. As the plants were placed in their proper spots, Elias felt a strange energy pulse through the ship. It was subtle at first, like a faint hum beneath the floor, but it grew stronger. The ship's system seemed to respond, the power flickering back to full strength. "Shields are stabilizing," Lara reported. "We're holding, Captain." Elias couldn't believe it. The plants were working. The ship's shields were stronger than before, and the engines hummed with renewed power. "We can fight," Elias said, his voice filled with new determination. "Prepare for combat. We're going to take the fight to them." The Empire's ships were still in pursuit, but now they weren't as confident. The Liberator was no longer just a target. It was a force to be reckoned with. Elias gripped the controls, feeling the energy from the plants coursing through the ship, making it stronger faster. He could see the Empire's ships in the distance, their weapons charging. But this time, they wouldn't have the upper hand. They were about to find out what it meant to underestimate the power of the Hethari plants. "Ready to engage, Captain," Lara said, her voice steady. Elias nodded. "Open fire." The ship's weapons fired with precise accuracy, hitting the lead Imperial cruiser square in the shield. The impact sent a shockwave through the ship, shaking it, but the shields held. Elias grinned. They were fighting back now. The Empire hadn't expected this. As the battle raged on, Elias knew that this was no longer just about surviving. It was about proving a point, about showing the Empire that they couldn't control everything. The plants weren't a weapon to be exploited. They were a symbol of something greater, and Elias was willing to die to protect them. Elias gripped the controls, his fingers tight around the cold metal. The ship shook again as another blast from the Empire's cruisers hit the shields, but they held strong. The plants they carried, those precious, glowing plants, were still alive in the heart of the ship, their energy flowing through the systems, enhancing the ship's capabilities. Elias could feel the power. It wasn't just the ship's engines or shields working at full strength. It was the plants. They were alive and they were protecting them. The Empire was relentless. They had sent wave after wave of fire, trying to break through the shields, trying to stop them. But Elias was not about to let that happen. Not now. Not after everything they had been through. "Captain," Lara Jax's voice broke through the tension in the cockpit. "The Empire's reinforcements are on the way. They've got a fleet coming." Elias cursed under his breath. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 15 minutes. Less, depending on how fast they're moving." 15 minutes. The thought of a fleet descending on them sent a cold chill down his spine. They were too far from any major defense systems. Their only hope was to reach the hidden station that Lyra had mentioned. But they needed to get there first, and that meant fighting off the Empire's forces. "We're not going to outrun them, are we?" Elias asked, looking at Lara. "No, Captain," Lara replied, "but we can fight. We've got the advantage of surprise. They don't know what we're capable of now." The thought of using the plants to enhance their ship had been a gamble, but it was paying off. Their shields were holding strong, their weapons were more powerful than ever, and the ship was moving faster than Elias had thought possible. But they were still outnumbered, and the Empire's firepower was unmatched. They had one chance. They had to make it count. Lyra, Elias said, turning to the Hethari woman who was standing beside him. We're going to need everything you've got. Can you help us fight back? Lyra nodded slowly, her dark eyes filled with the weight of the moment. I will do what I can. But you must understand, Captain, this is not just a battle of weapons. It is a battle of belief. The plants hold power, yes, but they also hold truth. The Empire seeks to control what they cannot understand. Elias clenched his jaw. And we're going to stop them, together. The ship's systems hummed in response, the plants inside glowing brighter as if they understood the urgency. Elias could feel the pulse of energy in the air around them. It was almost as if the ship itself was alive, as though it were linked to the very heart of the Hethari's gift. He had never believed in the mystical, but after everything he had seen, he could no longer deny it. There was something otherworldly about these plants, something far beyond the Empire's reach. Lara spoke again, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. We've got one shot at this, Captain. If we engage now, we need to do it all at once. No hesitation. Elias nodded. Prepare the weapons. Get us into position. The ship's weapon systems came online with a satisfying hum, the air vibrating with the energy of the plants coursing through the ship. Elias could feel it deep in his bones. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was a battle for the future. Coordinates locked, Lara announced. We're ready when you are. Elias took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the stars ahead of them. The Empire's fleet was still several minutes away, but they couldn't afford to waste time. They had to strike first. Open fire, Elias commanded. The ship's weapons fired with deadly precision, beams of energy cutting through the darkness and striking the lead Imperial cruiser. The impact was explosive, sending shockwaves through the surrounding ships. The Empire's fleet responded almost instantly, firing back with everything they had. But Elias and his crew were ready. Shields holding, Lara reported, her fingers dancing over the controls. We're holding them back, Captain. Elias' heart raced as the battle intensified. Their ship was faster and more powerful now, but it wasn't invincible. The Empire's fleet was relentless, their firepower overwhelming. Elias had no illusion about the odds. They were outnumbered, but they had something the Empire didn't, the truth, the plants, and the Hethari. Another explosion rocked the ship, and Elias braced himself against the controls. The ship was shaking, but the plants in the core of the ship were still glowing brightly, their energy sustaining the shields, protecting them. He couldn't help but marvel at the power of these plants. They weren't just a source of life, they were a force of nature, a reminder that there was more to this galaxy than just war and destruction. The plants could heal, could restore balance. They could give hope where there was none. Captain, we're taking fire, Lara shouted. We can't keep this up much longer. Elias' mind raced. They needed to find a way to end this. The Empire would never back down. They would keep coming until they were either defeated or had everything under control. But Elias wasn't about to let that happen. He had made his choice. He was fighting for something more than just survival. We have to hit them where it hurts, Elias said, more to himself than anyone else. If we can disable their command ship, we can take the rest down. Do you have a plan? Lara asked, raising an eyebrow. We hit their weak spot, we take down their leadership. They'll fall apart without it. Lara looked at him, then nodded. I'm with you. The ship lurched again as another blast hit them, but Elias remained steady. They were getting closer to the lead Imperial cruiser, the command ship that was directing the rest of the fleet. They had one shot, he had to make it count. Lara, prepare a full charge shot, Elias said. We're going straight for the command ship. Aim for the central core. Lara's hands flew over the controls, her focus unshaken by the chaos around them. The ship's weapons powered up, the hum of energy growing louder in the air. Elias could feel the plants in the core of the ship, their energy feeding into the weapons systems, making them stronger, more precise. They were ready. Charge complete, Lara said, her voice steady. We're locked on. Fire, Elias ordered. The shot ripped through space, a brilliant beam of light that slammed into the heart of the Empire's command ship. The impact was deafening, the explosion sending ripples through the fleet. For a moment, everything went silent. The enemy ships began to break apart, their communication systems scrambled, their weapons failing. We did it, Lara said, her voice filled with disbelief. We actually did it. Elias allowed himself a small smile. They had won for now, but the battle was far from over. The Empire wouldn't stop. They never stopped. But Elias had a feeling that things were changing. They had shown the galaxy something important, that the true power didn't lie in weapons or armies, but in something more, something pure. Something that could heal, that could bring balance where there was none. The Hethari had known this all along, and now Elias was beginning to understand. As the battle subsided and the remaining Imperial forces retreated, Elias took a deep breath. They had made it through, but there was still so much left to do. The plants were the future, but they would need to protect them, nurture them, and show the galaxy what they could offer. The Empire had tried to control them. But Elias knew now that they could never truly be controlled. Elias turned to Lyra, who was standing beside him, her expression unreadable. "What now?" he asked. Lyra smiled softly, the first real smile he had seen from her. "Now we take the first steps toward something better. We share the truth, we share the gift." Elias nodded, feeling a sense of hope he hadn't known in years. The war was over, the future had begun.